Go and get an update on what she's experiencing. Nicole?
Well, Lynn, I have to tell you, here where we are right on the beach, it's the noise, the sound of the debris flying. That is what is most making such an impact on us now. I'm going to step out of the way so we can tuck back there, and you can see that fence. That fence was closer to the road earlier this morning, which is probably 100 yards or so away. And it's not only breaking apart, it is moved closer to the beach, but that is just the least of it. In fact, just take a listen to that wind. It's not even just the roar of the wind, it's the sound of, especially you can hear pieces of roof coming off these very tall buildings. You hear it before you see it. You hear it, and then all of a sudden a piece of aluminum will come flying. In fact, a lot of what was here, the debris that was here, is actually washed out. But see right here, it looks like some roofing material. That just came down with a thud and then just shattered. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Why they always tell folks to, be somewhere safe. Don't go out on the roads, especially once all of this gets underway. And there you go. You can just see it. Even in the beginning, we were seeing very heavy pieces of this building. There were some letters that formed the name of the building, Fontainebleau, ironically enough, that came crashing down, and it just really, really dangerous. Now we're starting to see more pieces of what looked like roofing material. I wanted to see if Vivian was available. I had a couple of questions for her. Can she hear me? Is Vivian? Okay. Can Vivian hear me?
I am here, Nicole.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vivian. Hey, we had a couple of questions here. If you can see our shot now, that wind looks like it is coming very just steadily from the north. Does that make any sense to you, or does that tell you anything about where we are in the scheme of things? It's just very strong, straight winds coming from the north toward the Gulf.
Nicole, you're definitely getting winds coming in all sorts of directions, but the rain and, yes, storm surge moves onshore.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. I mean, it's very difficult sometimes for us to know exactly what to expect when we're out here, because sometimes you're out here and you think, boy, this water really isn't as high as everyone might say. But as we saw in Florence came through. I think they had dropped a category before it actually came on shore in North Carolina. So a lot of folks said, oh, okay, maybe it's not as bad as we think. And then we saw that just awful flooding in towns like New Bern and some of those other towns more inland in North Carolina, and they really were suffering the residual effects for days and weeks after the fact, even though in the very beginning with the category drop didn't seem like it was going to be quite as severe as everyone had thought. So I was wondering about that, but I have to say that being out here where we are, and once again we're very lucky in that we're in a spot that is covered up, but we can't even venture really even into the doorways because of that debris. It is coming from all directions, although because of that northern, what seems like the northern wind, you can see all of these buildings here are, of course, right up against the beach. So I'm seeing a lot of roofing debris that's being sort of pushed from the north out to the Gulf. That's where we're seeing most of the debris flying. In fact, if you look above, right there, it looks like something's coming loose right there as well. And that's why it's just so dangerous even to poke your head out of those doorways at certain times. You have to kind of wait for a lull to see if you can see anything. But anyone who's actually sheltering in place in their homes here in Panama City Beach, there's no reason for them, I can't imagine, to go outside or why they would even want to, because it is just simply too dangerous. Lynn?
And
Vivian?
And Nicole.
Where the winds have been just fierce. Nicole?
Well, Lynn, I want to show you something that happened just a few seconds ago. See this big piece of aluminum siding right there, right up against the fence? It blew off the building we're in, although I don't know if it's part of this building. It could have come from somewhere else. It bounced onto that balcony. We were standing on that balcony this morning. Right where we were standing, that piece of aluminum siding was bouncing around, and then it flew over the balcony, flipped over onto the ground. In fact, Jeff, if you can see down the beach, you can see some of those boxes, those white boxes that some folks had stored beach equipment, and there they go, right into the water. We believe that those are owned by some of these tourist companies, that they contain different kinds of equipment for, beach chairs and that sort of thing. That's what we were told. A couple of those white boxes have now washed away. At least if they have to go somewhere to go into the water rather than, and there it is, there it goes, rather than out into the stream where it could, and a big piece of plywood just went with it too. We're going to stay on that just for a moment. You can see the progression of something like this. This is something sometimes we only see the aftermath, and now you can see the debris just flying. The wind is coming from the north. That's where all the buildings are. So it's shooting all of this debris from on top of the buildings, on top of the neighborhood behind us, toward the Gulf. You certainly do not want to be in the way of any of that debris. And we are not. So just so you know, we are in a secure area where we are blocked from all of that. So that's good for us, but that is certainly why they don't want anyone being outside. Actually, if we could spin back around this way, Jeff. We'll spin back around this way. You can see some of the other debris that earlier had come off some of the buildings. Is all of this, it looks like pieces of aluminum siding. We do know that just about a half a block away or so, there is a mobile home park. I do not know how it is faring with the winds like this. I can't imagine that it's in good shape, but we just don't know. So we don't want to, panic anyone who might have friends or family here in Panama City. We just don't know, but it is about a half a block away. We noticed it yesterday that some folks had actually boarded up some of those mobile homes. We do not know if anyone had actually stayed. We did not see any signs of that. So that's good news that those folks would have left, because this is a mandatory evacuation area. Let's give you an idea of just how hard that wind is blowing. Look at that.
So Nicole, if you can hear me, when do you feel like, okay, if you're just now joining us, I should interrupt and remind viewers that what you're looking at is a live picture of the eye wall of a very strong Category 4 Hurricane Michael coming ashore. Live pictures out of Panama City. When do you feel like things really picked up there in Panama City?
Boy, it's hard to gauge time because we've been out here for so many hours. I would say it's probably picked up around 11:30, I would say. Right before noon. It really, just in the last few hours, and it has been sustained. There has not really been a lull. There's been no way for us to run back. Our vehicle is also undercover, but it's sort of a wind tunnel. So there's no way really for us to run back to our car, anything like that. It's been sustained.
They're still whipping, Nicole.
Well, they certainly are, Lynn. In fact, I'm going to try to see if we can move out here a little bit more. I mean, it's been like this, as you know, all day long, and we're starting to see now a little bit more of the damage that we had only kind of watched from a distance several hours ago. You see that fence over there. It's still really tough to stand out here. I just have to give that to you as a caveat. But you can see that there's that fence over there that has come across the top of this balcony. There are a lot of pieces of debris from the top of the roof. Here, I can show you. And even though they look like they could be soft, many of them, look at this, super sharp, looks like maybe rebar. That is very dangerous. We're going to stay right here, though, because it is still hard to move around. The wind is still very strong, but I have to tell you, the positive note that we are seeing is a little bit of sunshine. So we are hoping that some of these high winds are going to start to die down. We do know that the Gulf Coast has about 250,000 folks who are without power now. We've started to see some police officers drive by. There was some high water right outside of where we are. We don't know the source of that. It does not appear to be coming from the Gulf. And I'm starting to see a few more cars. The problem is, of course, officials do not want people venturing out because of just what we've shown you with some of this debris. Very easy to get to have blown tires, to have people get injured, and of course there are always the dangers of power lines that are down in a place where you cannot see them. In fact, we saw a power line come off that pole about an hour or two ago with a spark and a bang. And you know, if there's water below too, that's going to be a lot of problems. In fact, a lot of injuries from hurricanes come after the fact when people are venturing out. So we are certainly hoping that that is not the case here. Hopefully, though, we'll get a better sense of the damage here in Panama City a little bit later on, but the wind's still whipping up. Reporting live in Panama City Beach, Nicole Insalata, 7 News.